Germany's Sharia refugee shelters. Thank you for watching the Shikama Live Show with your host, Shikama. So it seems this is not being promoted in the mainstream media. Let's get into this. October 1, 2015. Christians, Kurds, and Yazidis in the shelters are being attacked by Muslims with increasing frequency and ferocity. Quote, I fled from the Iranian Secret Service because I thought in Germany I could finally live my faith without persecution. But in the refugee shelter, I cannot admit that I am a Christian, or I would face threats. They treat me like an animal. They threaten to kill me. Unquote. An Iranian Christian in a German refugee shelter. Quote, we have to dispense with the illusion that all of those who are coming here are human rights activists. We are getting reports of threats of aggression, including threats of beheading by Sunnis against Shiites. But Yazidis and Christians are the most impacted. Those Christian converts who do not hide their faith stand a 100% probability of being attacked and mobbed. End quote. Max Klinberg, director of the Frankfurt-based International Society for Human Rights. Quote, we are observing that Salafists are appearing at the shelters disguised as volunteers and helpers, deliberately seeking contact with refugees to invite them to their mosques to recruit them to their cause. End quote. Hans Georg Maaßen, head of German intelligence. Police are urgently calling for migrants of different faiths to be housed in separate facilities. Some politicians counter that such segregation would go against Germany's multicultural values. Quote, the bulk of the migrants who are arriving here cannot be integrated. End quote. Heinz Buschkowski, former mayor of Berlin, Neukölln district. Muslim asylum seekers are enforcing Islamic Sharia law in German refugee shelters, according to police, who warn that Christians, Kurds, and Yazidis in the shelters are being attacked by Muslims with increasing frequency and ferocity. Muslim migrants from different sects, clans, ethnicities, and nationalities are also attacked each other. Violent brawls, sometimes involving hundreds of migrants, are now a daily occurrence. Police say the shelters, where thousands of migrants are housed together in cramped spaces for months at a time, are seething cauldrons ready to explode. The police are urgently calling for migrants of different faiths to be housed in separate facilities. Some politicians counter that such segregation would go against Germany's multicultural values, while others say that separating hundreds of thousands of migrants by religion and nationality would be a logistical impossibility. As the consequences of unrestrained migration become apparent, the tide of public opinion is turning against the government's open-door policy. Observers say the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the so-called most powerful woman in the world, may have met her Waterloo. A report published by the newspaper Die Welt in September 27 sheds light on the targeting of Christians by Muslims in German refugee shelters. The paper interviewed an Iranian convert to Christianity who said, quote, in Iran, the Revolutionary Guards arrested my brother in a house church. I fled from the Iranian Secret Service because I thought in Germany I could finally live my faith without persecution. But in the refugee shelter, I cannot admit that I am a Christian, or I would face threats. Muslims wake me before the crack of dawn during Ramadan and say that I should eat before sunrise. When I decline, they call me a kuffar, an unbeliever. They spit at me. They treat me like an animal. They threaten to kill me." End quote. At a refugee shelter in Himmer, a town in North Rhine-Westphalia, 10 Algerian asylum seekers attacked a Christian couple from Eritrea with glass bottles. The Muslims said they were angry that the man was wearing a cross. They ripped the cross from his neck and stole his money and cell phone. Die Welt also interviewed an Iraqi Christian family from Mosul who were living at a refugee shelter in the Bavarian town of Freising. The father said that threats by Islamists were a daily fact of life. Quote, "They shouted at my wife and hit my child," he said. "They said, 'We will kill you and drink your blood.'" End quote. Life in the shelter, he said, was as if in a prison. According to the director of the Munich-based Central Committee for Oriental Christians, Simon Jacob, these are only the tip of the iceberg. Quote, "The actual number of attacks is very high," he said. "We have to expect further conflict, which the migrants bring to Germany from their homeland, between Christians and Muslims, between Shiites and Sunnis, between Kurds and extremists, between Yazidis and extremists." End quote. Max Kleinberg, the director of the Frankfurt-based International Society for Human Rights, says that much of the aggression is being perpetrated by Afghans and Pakistans, who are even more Islamic than some Syrians and Iraqi. He warns that conflict in the refugee shelters will only become worse. Quote, "We have to dispense with the illusion that all of those who are coming here are human rights activists. Among those who are arriving here now, a substantial number, or at least are religiously intense as the Muslim Brotherhood. We are getting reports of threats of aggression, including threats of beheading by Sunnis against Shiites, but Yazidis and Christians are the most impacted. Those Christian converts who do not hide their faith stand a 100% probability of being attacked and mobbed." In a September 29 interview with the newspaper Passeur Neue Presse, the head of the German police union, Rainer Wind, warned that brutal criminal structure have taken over the refugee shelters and that police are overwhelmed and unable to guarantee safety and security. He called for Christians and Muslims to be separated before someone gets killed. Quote, "We have been witnessing their violence for weeks and months. Groups based on ethnicity, religion, or clan structures go after each other with knives and homemade weapons. When these groups fight each other at night, all those German citizens who welcome the migrants with open arms at the Muslim train station are fast asleep, but the police remain awake and are standing in the middle. We can only estimate the true extent of violence because women and children are often afraid to file a complaint, since it is also about sexual abuse and rape. Sunnis are fighting Shiites. There are Salafists from competing groups. They are trying to impose their rules in the shelters. Christians are being massively oppressed, and the Sharia is being enforced. Women are forced to cover up. Men are forced to pray. Islamists want to introduce their values and order at the shelters." Vent gave the interview days after 300 Albanian migrants clashed with 70 Pakistan migrants at a refugee shelter in Kalden, a town in the state of Hesse, on September 27th. More than a dozen people, including 3 police officers, were injured in the melee, which erupted after 2 migrants got into a fight while waiting in line at the canteen. It took 50 police officers several hours to restore order at the shelter, which is home to 1,500 migrants from 20 different countries. More than 60 migrants, including 10 children, were injured after Pakistan and Syrian clashed at the same shelter on September 13. The fight broke out just after midnight when someone sprayed mace into a tent filled with sleeping migrants. Police did not inform the public about the fight for more than a week, apparently to prevent fueling anti-immigrant sentiments. Violent brawls are becoming commonplace at German refugee shelters across the country. On September 30, migrants went to a rampage at a refugee center in Braunschweig, a city in Lower Saxony. On September 29, Syrian migrants clashed at a refugee shelter in Gerolzolven, a small town in Bavaria. Also on September 29th, migrants from Algeria and Mali clashed at a refugee center in Engelskirchen, a town in North Rhine-Westphalia. On September 28th, more than 150 Syrian and Pakistan clashed at a refugee shelter on Notznitzer Straße in Dresden. The migrants attacked after each other with wooden planks and metal bars. 24 police officers were needed to restore order. More than 30 Syrians and Pakistan clashed at the same shelter on August 10th. Also on September 28th, between 100 and 150 migrants of different nationalities clashed at a refugee shelter in Donaueschingen, a town in Black Forest. The trouble started over a dispute about who should be able to use the shower facilities first. On September 22, more than 400 migrants marched through the town to protest the conditions at the same facility. On September 15th, a male migrant was attacked by another migrant for using a female bathroom at the shelter. On September 24th, around 100 Syrians and Afghans clashed at a refugee shelter in Leipzig, the largest city in Saxony. The fight broke out after a 17-year-old Afghan pulled a knife on an 11-year-old Syrian girl at the shelter, which houses 1,800 migrants. On September 23rd, migrants clashed at a refugee shelter for an unaccompanied migrant in Nuremberg. On September 3rd, Syrian migrants attacked security guards at a refugee shelter in the Mobile district of Berlin. Also on September 3rd, Iraqi migrants attacked security guards at a refugee shelter in Heidelberg. A total of 21 squad cars were dispatched to restore order on September 2nd. Algerian and Tunisian migrants clashed at the same shelter. A dozen police cars were deployed to restore order. I'm going to skip most of the report because it's all that. Just clash after clash after clash after clash. It's almost on a daily basis, and police are being harmed, and they are keeping it a secret from the German population so that the Germans don't, in fact, go to the shelters and just wipe out the entire shelter. The politicians have absolutely no qualms about bringing these people in for absolutely no reason. Germany does not benefit from these migrants at all whatsoever. They're not hard workers. They don't have jobs, nothing. Literally, it is just a black hole that they're throwing stuff in. And if you look into it, it's a hotbed of Muslim hatred, and even Muslim hatred against Muslim hatred. It's not one-sided. Now, there are no reports of Christians doing anything, of Yazidis doing anything. This is all Muslim. Now, you can say that, oh, that's racist or that's whatever. The facts are the facts are the facts are the facts. I'm going to do a report after this, which is really going to shed some light on what's going on. According to the Jörg Radek, the vice chairman of Germany's police union, police have reached the absolute breaking point, and Christian and Muslim migrants should be housed separately. In September 28th interview in the newspaper Die Welt, Radek said, "Our officers are increasingly being called to respond to confrontations in refugee shelters. When there are 4,000 people in a shelter, which only has space for 750, this leads to aggression where even something as insignificant as a walk to the restroom can lead to fisticuffs. We must do everything we can to prevent further outbreaks of violence. I think it makes perfect sense to separate migrants according to their religion. Not everyone agrees. In an interview with N24 television, the former mayor of Neukölln, district of Berlin, Heinz Bukowski, warned that if migrants are separated by religion and nationality, Germany risks the permanent establishment of parallel societies throughout the country. He's stupid. He's just insane. This is insanity. This is what the Democrats do to black people. Oh, no. Black people, you can't be separated. You can't have your own stuff. Note what the police and the actual human rights people are saying. These people need to be separated. Why? So that the Christians can be free to worship how they want to. The Yazidis need to be free to worship how they want to. And even the Sunnis and the Shiite Muslims, both Muslim, mind you, need to be separated so they can do whatever they want to do by themselves. And stop bothering other people. It's supposed to be a land of freedom. Same thing as in America. This is supposed to be a land of freedom, but the Democrats are always telling black people, oh, no. You don't have the freedom to be by yourselves. Wait, what? You don't have the freedom to congregate? You don't have the freedom to have your own culture? It's American culture. There is no such thing as American culture. I'm here to tell you. I've traveled all over the world. There is no such thing as American culture. American culture is a lack of culture. This is not a melting pot. They keep saying this is a melting pot. No. This is a country where people with culture come in and do their culture. White people have given up all semblance of their culture. It's only those new white people coming in who genuinely are seeking freedom and have the freedom to do their culture as they see fit, who keeps their traditions from their home country. So they can be white, yet German, yet Swedish, yet Irish, yet Scottish. And they keep all the traditions that their families have had for hundreds of years. Now, of course, they displaced Africans via the Caribbean slave trade and make sure that they separated and mixed and matched Africans from all sorts of countries, all sorts of tribes, all sorts of nations, and completely divested them of any and all culture. And they try the Democrats try and keep it that way and tell black people, no, you can't live together. That's segregation. This is a buzzword. Oh, that's segregation. So this idiot in Germany, even in the face of people being beheaded, is saying, we can't segregate people. That would be segregation. First of all, you're putting 1,500 people in a space. No, I'm sorry. 4,000 people in a space where 750 people are supposed to be. Only. Maximum. So you're treating the people like rats to begin with. And then you're asking these people who cannot coexist with other humans, these Muslims, who want Sharia law for everybody, even on people who've never even heard of a Muslim, never even seen a Muslim. You want them to be under Sharia law. And this is what Obama is bringing to you, people. Let's continue. Bukowski said the first lesson migrants must learn when they arrive in Western countries is tolerance. And if they refuse to accept people of other faiths, their asylum applications should be rejected. Let me pause right there. Mr. Bukowski, how do you determine if a person is tolerant or not when they're applying? It's like a first date. On a first date, you don't fart, spit, scratch your nuts, pick your nose, right? You don't do that on a first date. On a first date, you open up the door for the girl, right? You pull out the chair and scoot it in. Oh, you give her compliments. Tell her that she's beautiful when she's not. Tell her that her breath smells like roses when it smells like the bottom of your shoe. Why? Because she has big breasts. She has a big butt. She has a tiny waist. She has a vagina, basically, right? So Germany's the vagina, right? Do you think these migrants are going to come? Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so tolerant of other people. Oh, yes, sure. Sure. It's funny that politicians are talking to humans, but they act like they're not talking to humans, that they're talking to some sort of program, some sort of computer. You're going to be tolerant? Yes, I'm going to be tolerant. You're going to accept other people? Yes, I'm going to accept other people. Forever? Yes, forever. That is what I'm programmed to do. And as soon as they get into the thing, they were like, oh, this is how it is? Okay, let's go with it. Sharia law for everybody. I don't get it. He expressed pessimism about the possibility of integrating the current wave of migrants into German society. Wait. He expressed pessimism about the current, like the future ones. Oh, the future ones are going to be much better. Those programs are. Are you tolerant? I am very tolerant. Okay, this batch is good right here, because that other batch that told me that they were tolerant but weren't tolerant, they were lying. This one, he's telling the truth. Quote, the bulk of migrants who are arriving here cannot be integrated. End quote. Meanwhile, the head of German intelligence, Hans-Georg Madsen, was warned that radical Muslims in Germany are canvassing the refugee shelters looking for new recruits. He said, quote, many of the asylum seekers that have Sunni religious background. In Germany, there is a Salafist scene that sees this as a breeding ground. We are observing that Salafists are appearing at the shelters disguised as volunteers and helpers, deliberately seeking contact with refugees to invite them to their mosque to recruit them to their cause. Now, I know that the mainstream media doesn't go into all of this detail. I want you to have this detail. I want you to be informed of what's really going on. None of this just Muslim, because that doesn't describe anything. Because the African Muslims that I lived with have none of this crap. They are black and they are Muslim. That's it. None of these Sunni, Shiite, Seventh-day Adventists. The editor of the newspaper New Westfälische Ansgar Monter reports that Salafists in Bielefeld, a city in North Rhine-Westphalia, have already infiltrated refugee centers in the area by bringing toys, fruits, and vegetables for the migrants. Monter says naive politicians are contributing to the radicalization of refugees by asking Muslims umbrella groups in the country to reach out to the migrants. Monter points out, let me stop right there. Does that sound like somebody that you know? Oh, let's invite these refugees in. Oh, let's open up our arms. Yeah, that's Obama. And that's the left. That's the entire, we need to open up our arms to these. When these people start beheading you, Democrat, when they start beheading you, I'm just going to sit back and laugh. I've done 4 or 5 reports already specifically warning you what's going to happen. When they start beheading you, you can't say, oh my God, I had no idea. Well, you didn't watch the Shikama live show. That's what you did. Monter points out that the main Muslim groups in Germany all adhere to fundamentalist interpretations of Islam and are anti-Western in outlook. These are the main people who are already there. They're already integrated, quote unquote, into Germany. And they tolerate these people. I don't understand it. Some groups have ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, while others want to implement Sharia law in Germany. These are the main people already there. This is not some splinter group that just came. These are the people who, oh my God, Germany. According to Monter, politicians should not be encouraging these groups to establish contact with the new migrants. You have been warned. I've consistently warned you. And as I said, I'm not anti-Muslim. I lived in Muslim Africa. Very friendly. Nobody ever. We're going to church. I'm talking to my driver. We're going to church. Drive us to the church. Okay. Not even a word, not even a peep, not even a nothing. He's as Muslim as the day is long, but he's African. At no point did he say anything. And technically speaking, in Morocco, we weren't supposed to openly say that we were Christian, but absolutely nobody came into the house that looked like much like a church, and it had a steeple and it had a cross on top of it, and it looked like one of those Elizabethan type of places. Yeah, exactly. We weren't hiding. We weren't in a basement. And when you walk inside, there's a bunch of pews. Yeah, that's Africa. Now, I'm sure maybe in Iran that's not a good deal, or Pakistan. That's not the good idea. Maybe you should be in somebody's basement praying or something like that. Anyway, this is Germany's Sharia law refugee shelters. Note that the Germans aren't doing this. It's the refugees who are doing this. This is the insanity that is coming to a neighborhood near you. Thank you for watching the Shikama live show.